Okay, so Abacus AI just dropped a massive update for its Deep Agent. And we're not talking about some minor tweak here. This is a big one. It's an upgrade that could completely change the entire game of automation. So what does it actually mean when the AI itself starts building other AI? Let's dive in and find out.
Yeah, this one sentence really just says it all, doesn't it? The barrier to setting up complex automations has basically been removed. I mean, that's a huge claim. It's basically saying that all those painful days of coding and trying to get different systems to talk to each other, they're over. But, what does that really look like in practice?
So how do you actually get there? How do you go from this super complex technical mess to something so simple that the barrier is, like they said, basically removed? Well, the answer is pretty fascinating. It's a total shift in how we even think about automation in the first place.
Okay, so here's the core idea. Deep Agent isn't just one single AI assistant anymore that you build to do one specific job. Nope. Now it's a system that actually generates and manages a whole team of other specialized agents, and it does it on the fly, from nothing more than a simple text prompt.
The best way to wrap your head around this is to think of it like hiring a general contractor to build a house, right? You don't walk up to the contractor and tell them how to pour concrete or how to do the electrical wiring. No way. You just describe the house you want. Deep Agent is that general contractor. You just describe the end goal, and it goes out and automatically hires, coordinates, and manages all the little specialist agents to get the job done. So the big question is, how in the world does it pull that off?
Well, for a bunch of different AI agents to work together like a real team, they need two things: a common language and a way to figure out what the other agents can do. And that's where this key piece of technology comes into play.
It's all made possible by something called the Model Context Protocol, or MCP for short. Honestly, you can just think of it as a universal translator for AI. It's what lets all these different agents and models, which used to be stuck in their own little worlds, suddenly discover each other, connect, and share information, all without anyone having to manually set it up. It just smashes those digital silos.
And the way it works is just, well, it's really elegant. First, MCP helps an agent discover what other tools are out there that it can work with. Then, it creates the connections, linking everything up automatically. And finally, it manages the flow of information back and forth. That's the secret sauce right there. That's what makes this dynamic, on-the-fly teamwork possible.
All right, so that's the theory behind it all. But what does this actually look like when the rubber meets the road? Let's check it out in practice. We'll start with a simple, single-agent task, just to see how powerful one little instruction can be.
Now, just look at the level of detail in this prompt. This is not a simple command like make a sales chart. No, the user is describing exactly what they want in plain English. They're talking about seasonal spikes, specific axis labels, even shadow lines. This is the kind of detailed brief you'd hand over to a human graphic designer.
And boom, just like that, Deep Agent builds it. Instantly. There's no coding, no messing around in some complicated design software. The agent just takes that super detailed text description and turns it directly into a finished visual. It's just done.
But here's where it gets really cool. Need to make a change? It's just as easy. You don't have to go back and find the original file or dig into the code. You just type another instruction, like update the year from 2024 to 2025, and the whole thing just updates itself. You're literally having a conversation with your documents.
Okay, so those single-agent examples are really impressive, for sure. But think of them as just the building blocks. The real game changer, the big breakthrough, is how Deep Agent can now build entire teams of agents to handle really complex end-to-end workflows.
Let's take a classic example, right? Connecting two tools like Jira and Slack. The old way. It was so tedious and technical. You had to manually set up triggers, map all the fields, write some bridge code, test everything. It was a whole thing. Now at Deep Agent, you just describe the goal. Something as simple as, hey, update my Slack channel whenever a Jira issue changes status. And that's it. The entire integration is built for you.
And this idea applies to pretty much everything. Just think about it for a second. You could generate a social media manager agent that schedules posts, finds the right hashtags, and even writes the captions for you. Or what about a Google Meet scheduler that checks everyone's calendars, books the meeting, and sends out the invites?
or a workflow that keeps all your tasks in Notion perfectly synced up. Every single one of those is a complex, multi-step process that's now handled by a custom team of agents, all born from a single description.
But okay, what about this? This is a huge problem that every business runs into. What happens when your tools change? You spend all this time building the perfect workflow, and then 6 months down the line, the company decides to switch from one piece of software to another. In the past, that meant you had to rebuild the entire thing from scratch.
Well, with Deep Agent, that workflow isn't set in stone. Because the agents are generated dynamically, you can just give them a new instruction. You just type, hey, switch from Slack to Microsoft Teams, and the agents literally reconfigure themselves to work with the new tool. That is a massive leap forward in adaptability.
So when you put all these pieces together, what you're really looking at is a fundamental shift in how work itself gets done. We are starting to move away from a world where we all have to be experts at a dozen different tools and interfaces just to do our jobs.
So, let's break down the key takeaways here. First, complex integrations now become simple text prompts. Second, these workflows are dynamically generated on the spot. They're not pre-built and rigid. Third, the agents can adapt to new tools and new needs instantly. And what does that all mean? It means the focus completely shifts from managing tools to defining goals. We can stop worrying about the how and focus entirely on the what we want to achieve.
And all of this really leads to a much, much bigger question, one to leave you with. What happens when AI doesn't just replace our simple tasks, but it starts designing the very systems that run those tasks? This isn't just about working faster anymore. This is about AI becoming the architect. And that right there is a profound shift that opens up a future of possibilities we are only just beginning to imagine.